Earlier on when you were sharing your story and when you were sharing that the blood test that you took, it the medical provider said everything looks normal, right? And you were like, oh, okay. And it was to, or our upset because you didn't understand what it was that was driving the symptoms or the uncomfort that you're feeling. What is the difference between those blood tests versus these functional blood tests?
Mm, that's a great question, Trishi. I'm glad you asked it because I think it would help so many people to be a little bit more educated in their options and also the differences. So, I mean, I had to go through my own journey and study it to find out. So, let's share that information. First of all, conventional blood testing. How do you think they create those blood test ranges? Where do you think they get that data from? Can you take a guess?
Just like average metrics that they might have, like ideally this is what a human's metric KPIs business manager talk, this is what like the ideal ranges should be for average person. Or
Yes, somewhat true. So they get a sample of a population, right? So let's say they sampled, I don't know, 100,000 people, right? They get a sample of the population and then they utilize a bell curve analysis, right, to create an average of their blood test. So they get a sample size of people, they capture the data from those people's blood tests, okay? And then they create that bell curve analysis to determine the average. Now, the problem with this is that the samples that they're getting the blood tests from are from people that are going to hospitals, people that are going to doctors' offices. And have a think about this. When you're going to the hospital or doctor's office, are you usually in optimal health or are you usually sick with something going on?
the latter. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you zoom out and you start understanding this, you think, what the hell? That's crazy. But this is actually what's happening, right? So that's the first factor is they're getting a sample size or sample data from people that are going to the doctor's office or hospitals that are already sick or suffering with some kind of symptom. Okay. So you're then starting to compare your blood test to a sick person when you really look at it. On top of that, they're not factoring in with this sample size that the individuals might be already struggling with some thyroid conditions, with immune conditions. They're already experiencing symptoms. That's why they're there at the doctor's or hospital's office. They may be on medications. They may have lifestyle factors influencing their health. That's not captured or integrated in that data. Okay. So, as you can start to understand, there's a lot of holes in that. When I first found this out, it blew my mind. And I was telling someone today this as well. And she was gobsmacked. She could not believe it. And you wouldn't believe the amount of women that come to me and say, oh, Ash, but the doctor says my blood test is normal. Like, how can that be? Why is you all saying it's high? And then they're saying it's normal. And so that conventional blood range is based technically on a sick population. Because when you look at the population, Trishi, 1 in 2 have a chronic illness, and 88% of us are metabolically ill. And those are the samples we're getting it from. Okay. So, based on that, functional blood testing, we base it on an optimized individual's health. So, we use tighter ranges, right? We use smaller ranges based on optimized health. That is the difference. And we sample those reference ranges from healthy individuals that don't have any underlying health issues going on, that don't have any symptoms going on. So just looking at that from afar, I mean, you tell me, do you think that there would be a big difference?
Absolutely. Just the high, it's like functional testing. It's like you're putting it, you have a higher standard altogether.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Yeah, higher standard for your health. Yeah. Because when you do look around, I don't know, you tell me, but when you look around, you start observing when you go to the office or you listen, to your family members and things like that, you do start to observe that a lot of people are struggling with health issues, right? And 1 in 2 people have chronic health issues. So, we really need to start understanding that, okay, if I have all of these symptoms and the doctor's telling me it's normal, are these symptoms normal? That's always the first question to ask yourself, right? Because your body's always communicating through symptoms. One thing I didn't mention, I think it's important to understand with the conventional blood testing, is that it is designed to detect an illness once it's already out of range. There's zero opportunity for prevention. So you might go to, I always use this example. Let's just say your thyroid level, TSH, is between 0 and 10, right? You could be having all the symptoms, Trishy. You're tired, you're constipated, you have low libido, your hair is thinning, you're putting on weight, you can't sleep at night. You've got all the symptoms for hypothyroidism, right? So you go to the doctor, he does the blood test, but then you could be coming in at a 9. So technically you're not out of range, so they're not going to detect that you have hypothyroidism, but you're on the cusp of literally having hypothyroidism. All right, so then you go home. Same thing happened to me. You'll go home. You'll get on with your life. You won't have any change in your diet or lifestyle. You come back to the doctor's office 6 months later. Oh, what do you know, Trishy? You actually have hypothyroidism. Your test is now coming in at 15. That could have been prevented using intervention like optimal ranges in functional medicine. Does that make sense?